Don't steal, don't cheat, and don't lie. I know you got mountains to climb, but always stay humble and kind. When the dreams you're dreaming come to you, when the work you put in is realized, let yourself feel the pride, but always stay humble and kind. When it's hot, eat a root beer popsicle. Shut off the AC and roll the windows down. Let that summer sun shine. Always stay humble and kind. Don't take for granted the love this life gives you. When you get where you're going, don't forget, turn back around. Help the next one in line. Always stay humble and kind.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Mike. I am truly humbled by your voices and your vulnerability and your grace, even in the face of making mistakes, and your professionalism. And I'm humbled by your words and your presence, David. And I love your version of the song. I listened to that song, Humble and Kind, online this week. And in the comment section, I want to share with you a comment I found. It said, if we all lived like this, we'd be living in a much happier and better country. We are feeling so many feelings these days about our own lives and about the direction our country is taking. We are feeling so many feelings, and all our feelings have something to teach us, mostly about ourselves. Many of us are more familiar with feelings of anger and frustration and even rage these days than we are with those calm and peaceful feelings of humility and acceptance in the song we just heard, or the feelings we feel when we do slow down enough and bow. I've been calling these times we're living in right now the fast track to enlightenment. With the persistent spreading of the COVID-19 virus and the news that the schools are staying closed, growing fears about our economy and a slow recovery, protests in the streets for racial equity, all the uncertainty, rumors about interference with our elections, we get to choose every day whether we will be consumed by fear and judgment or not. Which made me wonder how it went with the homework Marlon suggested for all y'all last Sunday. He asked us to pay attention to when anger rises and to notice the feelings that lie below the surface of the water. He called anger a secondary or signal emotion. I'd love to invite you to put in the chat right now what feelings you noticed below the surface of your anger. That way we can all learn from each other. The news is enough to trigger all sorts of feelings. In The Atlantic, there was an article recently by Tom McTague entitled "The Decline of the American World." It came out on June 24th, and I quote, "It is hard to escape the feeling that this is a uniquely humiliating moment for America. Other countries are used to loathing America admiring America and fearing America, sometimes all at once. But pitying America, that one is new. What feelings come up for you as you hear this is a uniquely humiliating moment for America? What if we could see this as a moment to practice humility instead of feeling humiliated? What if we paused to bow and to wonder? Anger came up for me again over the last week when I heard that the city was trying to remove or erase the words Black Lives Matter that were painted on Greenwood Ave for Tulsa's Juneteenth celebration. I was dumbfounded. And it was mostly anger that moved me to wake up at 5:30 in the morning to go downtown for a protest press conference. And I've learned enough not to show up at things like that unprepared. So I woke up early and gathered a few thoughts. And I was really glad to be there when I got there. It felt really important to me, really important, and to many others. And that the cardboard coffins and tombstones with names written on them, the names of people who had died 99 years ago and people who have died since then to racial violence, set the right tone, it felt like, saying this is sacred land. We were gathered together, and soon I noticed that I was not being asked to speak. Familiar feelings started stirring. Embarrassment, self-consciousness, hurt, fear, anger. Could I bow to my own feelings and be humble before my own conditioning came to mind because I was preparing this message? What I noticed is that as I shifted internally from feelings of humiliation to humility, my outward focus shifted too. I was free of me and could pay attention to what was actually happening on Greenwood. I was profoundly moved by each and every speaker. I wasn't worried about what I was going to say next. And I was able to support and celebrate each and every speaker wholeheartedly. I felt relieved and grateful to be part of a movement much, much, much larger than me. Doing our own will is usually what harms us, said Teresa of Avila, the Christian mystic. Modern psychology supports this mystical medieval view. Here's a definition of humility from the Journal of Positive Psychology. Humility is the understanding and experience of oneself as a finite and fallible being that is but an infinitesimal part of a vast universe, and so has a necessarily limited and incomplete perspective or grasp on the whole, which is infinitely larger and greater than oneself. This time in history is not asking us to be heroic. It is asking us to be humble. These times are asking us to stop striving and climbing and instead to allow ourselves to flow downward as water does. Like the water in our simple gifts to painting, the Tao is hidden in all things, life-giving, enduring. Always seeking out the lowest places, water is also immensely powerful, carving out vast canyons. Pema Chodron, Buddhist teacher, and I call her my teacher too, puts it this way. Spiritual awakening is frequently described as a journey to the top of a mountain. We leave our attachments and our worldliness behind and slowly make our way to the top. At the peak, we've transcended all pain. The only problem with this metaphor is that we leave all the others behind. Our incarcerated brothers and sisters, families living in overheating parts of the earth, our friends and neighbors who are devastated by racism. Their suffering continues unrelieved by our personal escape. In the process of enlightenment, the journey goes down, not up. It's as if the mountain pointed toward the center of the earth instead of reaching for the sky. Instead of transcending the suffering of all creatures, we move toward the turbulence and the doubt. We flow toward it however we can, at our own pace, without speed or aggression. We move down and down and down. With us move millions of others, our companions in awakening from fear and anger. And at the bottom, we discover water, source, our interdependence, Christ, God. Right down there in the thick of things, we discover the love that will not die. Water flows downhill, and we can too. We can learn to bow before the beauty and the suffering, even our own suffering. When we bow, we lower our heads to the level of our hearts. You can try it at home right now if you want. And so we bow and we acknowledge all the things we do not know or understand, including the secrets of our own hearts. We bow and we give thanks for all that we've been given through no effort of our own, deserving or not. We even bow to the life force of this virus. We bow and show our respect for the gifts and talents and generosity and hard work of others around us. We bow and lower our heads to meet our hearts, acknowledging that without engaging our hearts, our minds will never find wisdom. Today, we're being asked not to be heroic, but to be humble. We're being asked to shift from the age of me to the age of we. In the age of we, our individual accomplishments will matter much, much less than our commitment to the collective well-being of all. We know the work on whiteness already. We already know the work on whiteness requires humility, admitting how much we don't know, how much we have to learn, how much we need to listen in order to learn. Humility is a strength, I hope you see, not a weakness. A few weeks ago, while Floretta Reed, the president of our board of trustees, was leaving Sprouts wearing her mask, a white man verbally assaulted her, calling her the worst names you can imagine, both for the color of her skin and her gender. Shocked, she kept on walking out the door and found herself feeling sorry for the man and the hatred he carried with him. He is ill with his hatred, Flo told me, and I am free. In the Jewish tradition, humility is seen as part of the essential dignity of human beings and is not merely the absence of pride, but a positive force which expresses itself in constructive action. So we do not need to feel humiliated by this time in history, by the failures of our nation in this moment in history. Instead, we can choose to be humble and curious. We can learn from other nations about how we want our government to care for its people and protect us. We don't have to worry that we're not doing enough. We are part of larger currents carrying us into the future. This movement is all around us, flowing below the surface of our anger and our anxiety, of our despair and our depression, of our hope and our joy and our awe. It isn't necessary to do great things, Mother Teresa said, but to do small things with great love. St. Francis of Assisi said he rejoiced in insults and was saddened by praise. This may sound a little harsh to our modern ears, so attuned to affirming our self-esteem and the self-esteem of those around us, but there is wisdom in his ways. He knew blame would lead him to be more honest with himself, while praise would lead him to deceive himself. Like the samurai in our opening story, being insulted revealed himself to himself, so he could set down his sword, open his heart, and hear something new. So as you begin this week, I invite you to play with this practice of bowing as a way of acknowledging all that you don't know. We have a lot to learn from each other as we try to move forward together out of this age of me into this age of we. When you feel insulted, when you feel yourself close to touching that hem of humiliation, I invite you to turn your attention to humility, to shift your focus, to try bowing, literally, or in your imagination, depending on where you are. And as you lower yourself ever closer to your heart and to the ground, notice there is no way now to fall. You are held close by a reality that can never and never will withdraw. Oh Lord, I know it's hard to be humble, but humility will lead us home, not heroics. May it be so. I love you. I bow to you.
We would be one, as now we join in singing our hymn of love, to pledge ourselves anew